Welcome, Wargamers, back to Battle Ready. As you can see, Drake is out one more week, but he should be back next week, and we'll talk more about gaming as a family, gaming as a father and son, and what we can do to improve our gaming experiences and share them with you. So since it's just me today, I wanted to talk very briefly about painting and why you should do it. Okay, this video, yes, it's about painting, but I'm not gonna paint a model in front of you. I'm not gonna talk about any fancy techniques. This video is really strongly geared towards people who are regularly playing gray armies, who are apprehensive about putting a paintbrush to paint and then putting it on the model. And I wanna tell you why you shouldn't be that way. Bit of background, I have no artistic skill, none. I have never taken an art class outside of, middle school. I'm in a very non-artistic profession, and I've never enjoyed drawing. I've never enjoyed painting. And to be perfectly frank, that's actually my least favorite part of the hobby. I love playing, and I really enjoy building. And I enjoy converting a little. I haven't done very much of it, but I enjoy that a little bit. Painting is something I do because it's tolerable, but what you get at the end is amazing. So let me just talk about the 4 reasons you should pick up a paintbrush and paint your models. Now, I come from a board gaming background, and it's been very popular the last 5-6 years or so to put minis in games. And I can tell you that's where I started painting, because I wanted my board games to look better. And they did. They do look better with paint on them. A lot of times people are scared. They think, oh, I'm gonna mess up my model, or now my board game's gonna look worse than if it was just gray plastic. In Warhammer, my models are gonna look worse if I just slap some paint on there, and then it's gonna look ugly. Whereas at least if it's gray, it's clean, it's fine. And let me tell you, the number one the number one tip is don't be scared. Don't be scared. I can promise you 100% that model will look better with paint on it. I can't tell you how many times I've played a game with a gray model, whether particularly in Warhammer, but even in board games, and you think, okay, yeah, this is my fighter, or yeah, this is the monster, whatever, and it's fine. It's fine. But when I go to paint it, suddenly I can see, oh, he's got a little pouch right here on his hip, or oh, that thing they were holding is a crystal. It's not just a lump in there. That's not their fingers. They're holding something. And then once you start picking those things out, holy mackerel, that model looks a million times better, because with paint on it, you can see the different parts of the model. You can see, oh yeah, it's not just a gray blob. That's the way their hair is parted, and they've actually got a scar on their eye. Boom. Now you can see all this stuff, and it is amazing what it does to the games. With a lot of the board games I played a lot of Euro-style board games, things like Settlers of Catan and that sort of thing. And there's almost a point of pride among a lot of board gamers about, oh, I only need, little wooden cubes, and I only need little flat discs. I don't need fancy miniatures in order to enjoy my game. And there's merit to that. I'm not trying to talk down to that at all. But when you're playing a game that's providing a narrative experience, there's some games that provide a strategic experience where you're enmeshed in the strategy back and forth, and that's fine. That's great. But if that game is going to be providing a narrative experience, and it can do both, right? I think Warhammer clearly shows that it can do both. If you're providing a narrative experience, that narrative, that story, the thing you're going to go back and tell your friends and say, oh my gosh, I had this greatest game where I charged in, and then I went down to one guy, but that one guy, he managed to take out the whole garrison, whatever the story is. Those kinds of stories are going to be enhanced when you can recall what those models look like. They will look better than gray plastic. All right? You might not be a Golden Demon winner. None of us are. I know I never will be. That's fine. Your games, your enjoyment, your satisfaction will be higher. You know, you're investing a lot of money in these models. You're investing a lot of time to learn the rules. Warhammer is not, it's not complicated, but the interactions between a lot of different rules, remembering all the different rules for all the war scrolls for your units and how they interact with one another, you know, there's going to be a lot there. And like Drake and I have discussed before, we forget a lot. But what's going to keep you or help keep you motivated to go through that and learn that is the experience. And that experience is going to be enhanced by paint. Plus, let's say that your worst fear comes to light and you just mess it up. The whole thing looks atrocious. The paint went on too thick and you chose the wrong colors or something got mixed up and now their face looks ridiculous. You know, you can get LA's Totally Awesome. You can get Simple Green. You dump it in that thing. You leave it overnight. The paint comes off. If you need to do a little toothbrush action, you can do that. And then you've got your gray model again. It is no big deal, right? You can always paint over. And if you can't paint over, you can always strip it down. It doesn't take a lot of effort and you're back to where you came from. And then you learn something, right? And as any skill in painting, even though it's an artistic endeavor, I guess, sort of paint by numbers, even you will get better over time. You will flex that muscle, you will learn things. And the number of times you're gonna have to do that is, for me, it was 0, right? Because I had very low standards at first. But you're not gonna have to do that. Okay, second tip, painting is easy. There's a 3-step process, and really it's only a 2-step process. Okay, the 3-step process is paint it, wash it, highlight it. And that 3rd step is super optional. In fact, it was a long time before I started highlighting my models. And even now, I'll highlight a little bit. On bigger sort of centerpiece-y models, I'll take a little bit more time and do a little bit more work. But if I'm painting, you know, a unit of 10 or 20 models, I don't know how many highlights I'm doing. And that's because I'm really painting to a tabletop quality, to what Games Workshop calls a battle-ready standard, right? You just want it to look good on the table, right? On the table, you're not going to be eyeballing it up close. You're not going to take a super zoomed in picture where you can see all the nooks and crannies and the shading and the blends and how it looks beautiful. No offense to anybody that does that. There are people online who are amazing. But that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something that's going to help my game. And on the tabletop, it's going to be 2 feet away from me. I'm never going to see. Even if I make a little mistake and a little bit of skin paint goes on his leather satchel, or a little bit of leather satchel paint goes on his skin, you're not going to see it. You're not going to see it. So just putting the paint on is great. And then the wash. All right. A lot of paint companies make good washes. GW makes some great ones, very popular. I am fairly fond of Army Painter because they do the job and they're less expensive, particularly their dark tone and strong tone. Some of their other ones, the colored ones, they're okay. They're okay. But they're pretty inexpensive. And what those washes do is they'll put they're dark. And so you hit the model with them and the darkness goes into the crevices and then it breaks up the paint. So instead of just being a yellow, or not yellow, it's probably not a great color, a purple, or how about even better, like a tan rope. It's a rope. Just being a solid tan line, you throw some wash on there, and instead of that tan color, you get that darker brown or black, and it goes into all the little, folds of the rope. And then suddenly when you look at it, your eyes can see the little separations, and it looks like this gorgeous rope. And all you did was slap some wash on it. It's super easy to do. And in fact, the first models I did for various board games, I didn't even use wash because I was cheap and I didn't know if I was going to like painting and I didn't want to spend a lot of money. So what I did was I actually bought floor wax, bought min wax, and I used what they call the dip method, where I just sort of dunked the model in. Now, I didn't like how that made my model look after all, so I took a very old and grungy brush and just dipped it in the floor wax and then painted it on my guys. It makes them glossy, so you might have to hit them with a matte varnish at the end to take that gloss down, but it works super good. And you can get even a small tub like this for very inexpensive. You go to a hardware store or a Home Depot, or even like a Michael's might have them. And then if you want to, you can highlight afterwards by taking, like if you painted something red, then you would take either a lighter red or maybe even an orange, or in some cases a pink, depending on what exactly you're trying to do, and hit just the top edges or the sharp points of a model to really bring it out the way that, in a painting, if the light hits it, it'll look a little bit lighter than if it's in shadow or whatever. Or at least so I've been told. I don't know anything about art. But it does make the model look a lot better. So that's an option. But that third part, I mean, it's totally unnecessary. And then the other thing you might look at too are the Games Workshop contrast paints. Now the contrast paints are mostly awesome. I really like them. Not every color is great. For example, there's a color called Shyish Purple, which is super dark. I mean, it's like navy purple. You use that and it's gonna look almost black. But a lot of the ones, especially the browns, things like Skeleton Horde is great for skeletons. Snakebite Leather is great for leather. Gore Gruntifer is great for fur. Almost all the browns are great. I like some of the blues. They're really good colors. And the thing that makes them so great is you take the thing, you slap the paint on, and the paint is it's got a different medium than most acrylics, and it pulls away from the flat edges. So what happens is you get a paint where on the flat edges, it ends up being sort of the lighter color, like a light orange or a light yellow or whatever. But then where the paint has sort of pooled in the crevices, it's a darker color. And so what you end up getting is it's like a paint and a wash in one. So that takes you down to one step, right? Now you just have to do the one step and you've got a paint and a wash. Now you can, of course, throw washes on top of it or do highlighting after, all that stuff's still available to you. But if you really just sort of want to paint and go, those contrast paints are money in the bank. That is a great way to paint the models. The only thing I would caution about them is I don't think there are any metallics in the contrast paints. So you would still have to, if you've got swords or gold chains or whatever, you would still want to do those in the normal, metallic acrylic paints. But other than that, I use those paints for lots and lots of stuff. And especially they're best where there's texture, fur, feathers, stuff like that, ropes, wood, all that is gonna look great. If it's a big, flat, smooth piece, I don't know that they offer a lot over traditional acrylic paints, so But anyway, the main point of this tip is that painting's easy. You'll see people online that say, oh, well, I spent 20 hours on this model, or I spent 10 hours on this. You don't have to do that. It really is a lot simpler than that. Throw down the base coat, throw a wash on it, be done. If it's a centerpiece and you like it, feel free to highlight it. But that's it. It is not a big time investment. Now, as you get better, you'll actually go faster. And then as you get better, you'll also start incorporating other techniques, and you might decide, you know what, I'm painting the Great Unclean One or the Lord of Change or whatever, the one that's gonna be like my centerpiece model, and he's gonna be bigger. So I'm gonna take a little bit more time and I'm gonna do some blends, or I'm gonna build up the texture or whatever. And great, more power to you. But you don't have to, right? Tip number 2 is all you have to do is paint it and wash it, and it's gonna look great on the tabletop. It's gonna look way better. You pick it up and you look at it real close, you might see some errors, right? It's not gonna win any competitions, but it's gonna dramatically enhance your game. Okay, tip number 3 is forget eyeballs. Just forget them. Don't do eyes. Just don't do them. They're hard. They're easy to mess up. And I cannot tell you how many models I've done their eyes, and I think I'm doing a great job, and then I pull away, I'm staring right at the model's face, and then I pull away just a little bit, and I got one eye going like this and one eye going like this. And it's so disappointing. To do a good eye, to do a competent eye, because you can there's all kinds of ways to do eyes that are better than this. But to do a competent eye, you actually have to paint white in the eye hole, and then you've got to dot it with black. You can do different colors, but they all just end up looking black. And black's sort of the easiest paint to work with, I think. So I just throw a little dot of black in there. And that's going to give you the pupil and the iris, and that's going to make it look more like an eye than if you just put black in there immediately. The only problem is if you put the black a little bit this way on this eye and a little bit this way on that eye, now your figure looks cross-eyed. The other thing is it can sometimes be difficult to get the white just right. So one of the things I do when I do eyes is I'll do the white and then the black, and then I'll go back with the skin tone to clean up anywhere where the white sort of overshot, right? It's a hassle. And half the time, I don't even do the eyes. I just finished painting almost all of the Cruel Boys from the Dominion box. I didn't do one eye. I'm not doing them. It's just, especially for things like the Gut Rippas, there's 10 of them, I'm not doing that many eyes. Now, again, if it's a centerpiece model, I did the eyes for the Great Unclean one. I've done eyes for, I think I did it for Indrasta. I may have done them for some other characters in the past. And I'll do it for bigger stuff, especially if the model's bigger, like the Great Unclean one. I mean, the eyes are still small, but at least they're bigger than some Skaven or some dwarf or something. Oh my gosh, it's the worst. But the secret is, don't do the eyes. When they're on the table, you're not going to see the eyes anyway. You throw down the paint, you throw down a wash on their face, and if you want to highlight, the nose, the brow, or whatever, great. That's going to look amazing. You don't need to do the eyes. Eyes are cool, and if you do them, great. And if you do them well, send me an email so I know how to do them well. You can share your knowledge. But just don't do them. They're hard. And I feel like if what you're looking for is a battle-ready, tabletop quality figure that's going to have your enjoyment enhanced, you don't need the eyes. So don't even stress over eyes. Just, keep them the flesh color. Maybe darken that area with wash, right? So that it looks, defined a little bit from the rest of the face. But don't worry about eyes. Okay. Fourth tip and final tip, and this is the most important one of all, for sure. The most important tip is do not compare yourself to the internet. Just don't do it. Okay? The people on the internet are art nerds. And I'm not saying nerd is a bad thing. We're all nerds. But they're people who have been interested in art. They're people who have practiced in various art mediums. They are people who understand color theory. I don't understand color. I know that there is such a thing as color theory, but I don't know. There are people who, look at lighting and have all these things. And it's funny when you watch their videos, and I've watched a ton of them. Sometimes they explain them, and sometimes they just sort of mention it because they mention these concepts, these techniques, because they've been learning about them in their art schools and their art classes and their art everything, that it comes as second nature. And to somebody like me who has no idea what they're doing in that respect, I don't know. Plus, if you look at people online that are saying, "Oh, here, check out my model. I'm going to enter it in such and such competition." Their models are gorgeous. You're not doing that, nor should you be. They took a long time to get there. Not doing that, right? Now, if you want to get to that level where you're, doing display pieces and going in for the crystal brush or golden demon or whatever, more power to you, right? I support you 100%. But what I'm saying is, if all you want is tabletop quality, if all you want is something that is going to enhance your games, whether you're playing at a local club or with your family, I point to him, he's not here, but if that's what you're looking for, you don't compare yourself. All you're going to do is say, oh man, that person had such a good blend on the face. Let me go ahead and see what I can do. And it's going to be hard because that person's got better brushes. That person's got an airbrush. That person's got access to a much wider array of paints than you do. They're mixing GW and Scale 75 and Monument Hobbies and Vallejo and Army Painter. You know, I've got Army Painter, good selection because it's inexpensive, and I've got GW for what Army Painter doesn't have but that I want, and that's it. And that's all I need, right? I'm not entering any competitions. I'm not seeking to win any competitions, and I'm not comparing myself to people who are, because that's not what I'm looking at for, right? If you compare yourself, if somebody's painting as their goal is to paint at this level, and your goal is to paint at this level, then don't compare yourself, because they're gonna look better, right? And sometimes you look at those paints that people have done and you say, oh my gosh, that's so good. I'm never gonna be that good. I might as well just end up with great guys, or I'm spending all this time and it's not getting to that level. No, just don't even go down that road. You're painting for you, right? And if what you're painting for is good models on the table that are going to enhance your personal enjoyment of the game, then that's the standard you paint to. Who cares what somebody else can paint to? Who cares what, so-and-so's Golden Demon entry is going to look like? Not relevant. Now, it's nice to see some of that stuff if it inspires you, or if you see a technique and you think, you know what, I've never wet blended before. Let me go ahead and try that. Or, hey, you know what, I've never really feathered in this way before. I've never used oil paints. I've never, whatever. Great, there's a bunch of YouTubers and other people out there who can teach those things. And some of that stuff, like oil paints, I've never even done. It's beyond me right now, and it's not something that I get to the quality I want without it, so I haven't really done it. But it is important not to get distracted down a road that you're not trying to get to, right? If the end goal is display paints, fine. But if your end goal is over here to personal enjoyment in your personal games, then don't compare yourself to people who are on a different path, right? And if you do that, you follow those 4 things, don't be scared. Paint, wash, highlight, and maybe just paint wash, and maybe just contrast paint. Forget eyes. I can't emphasize that one enough. And most importantly, don't compare yourself to others, especially if they're on a different path than you. You're going to put paints on your models. You're going to be impressed with how well it actually goes. And when you play with those models, I guarantee the game will be more enjoyable, it will be more memorable, and you will have more fun playing with little painted toy men than with gray plastic. Well, I hope this has helped you, and if you haven't yet taken your first steps into painting, please do, and I'd love to hear about it. And thank you very much, Wargamers. This has been Battle Ready.